The popularity of Formula One that you have here in the UK is what NASCAR is in the States. And just from a scaling purpose, NASCAR is probably 3 to 4 times the size of Formula One in the US, if you just look at the gross television numbers on any given weekend. So NASCAR is huge.
In a Raw interview, Jimmie Johnson exposed a bitter feud over money and power, revealing how NASCAR's tight grip on revenue sparked an antitrust lawsuit and left teams, including Michael Jordan's, fighting for their future. Is this the reckoning NASCAR feared all along? Let us explore this. Jimmie Johnson isn't just a NASCAR legend with 7 Cup Series titles. He's now a team owner at Legacy Motor Club, giving him a front-row seat to the sport's inner workings. On a recent episode of the Business of Sport podcast, he pulled no punches about a growing rift between NASCAR and its teams. A new charter agreement meant to share more revenue with teams fell far short of expectations, fueling a high-stakes antitrust lawsuit from 2 teams, Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. "We thought we'd get around 50% of media rights," Johnson said, "but every time the teams negotiated with NASCAR, there was less offered. We negotiated our way down to 29.5%. That's a gut punch for teams banking on a bigger slice of NASCAR's $7.7 billion media deal."
Welcome to the NASCAR Cup Series from Martinsville Speedway, the scene of some great dust-ups since 1947.
Drivers, start your engines!
To understand why this matters, let's break it down. NASCAR's charter system guarantees teams a spot in every race, plus a share of the prize money and media rights. Last year, NASCAR rolled out a new charter agreement for the 2025 season, promising teams a bigger cut of the sport's massive media revenue, up from 7% to 29.5%. Sounds like progress, right? Not so fast. Johnson revealed the teams had higher hopes, aiming for a 50% share, a benchmark seen in leagues like the NBA, but NASCAR played hardball. "There was a process, and we had higher expectations," Johnson explained. "Every time we negotiated, there was less on the table." The frustration boiled over when NASCAR set a strict deadline for teams to sign the new deal. Most complied, but 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports said no, launching an antitrust lawsuit against the sport. Why? Johnson hinted at the core issue: the way we, the ownership group, were asked to sign the contract on a particular day at a particular time has sent this into an antitrust lawsuit. Teams felt strong-armed, and now they're fighting back, claiming NASCAR's family-run structure unfairly hoards profits. The recent antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR highlights the deep-seated tensions between the sanctioning body and some of its teams, particularly 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. The dispute centers on NASCAR's centralized control and family-run structure, which teams argue unfairly hoards profits and limits their financial sustainability. The catalyst for the lawsuit was the way teams were asked to sign the 2025 charter agreements, with some feeling strong-armed into accepting terms without adequate time for review or negotiation. Teams claim that NASCAR's monopolistic practices, including its control over tracks and the charter system, restrict competition and prevent them from negotiating better revenue-sharing terms. This has led to allegations of antitrust violations, with teams arguing that NASCAR's structure creates an unfair environment that prioritizes the interests of the France family over those of the teams. The lawsuit seeks to challenge NASCAR's dominance and potentially force changes in how the organization distributes revenue and governs its relationships with teams, which could have significant implications for the future of the sport.
You have to be pretty, it counts. Yeah, it does. Good job.
We'll stay this way until we need to.
Let's zoom out for context. NASCAR isn't a league like the NFL, it's a family business, owned by the France family, who also control half the tracks where races are held. The other half, owned by the Smith family's Speedway Motorsports. Together, they rake in revenue from ticket sales, gambling, and international rights, none of which teams share in. Johnson pointed out the disparity. Right now, our revenue share only comes from U.S. media rights. Not track sales, not NASCAR sponsorships, not new money from gambling or international growth. That's a sore spot when NASCAR's popularity is soaring, with record TV viewership, second only to the NFL, and global expansion into markets like Mexico City. For teams, the charter agreement isn't just about money, it's about survival. Charters secure their spot on the grid and attract sponsors, but Johnson warned, nobody's going to willingly give up large sums of money. The lawsuit, now dragging on for 8 months, shows how deep the divide runs. The argument over whether 2311 and Front Row can compete under the charter has occupied probably 8 months, Johnson said. One ruling is in favor of the teams, the next one's in favor of NASCAR. And then it's back to the teams. They just keep delaying the process.
I believe it's 50%.
50%?
Yes, I think the lowest.
How does that work? If they're fifth and you're the top four, how do they get 50% and you get 28%?
So there are some big differences. We are not a league. The other sports entities are leagues. We're private contractors that have come in. And we don't necessarily have franchises, but we have charters. And so these charters are renewed and the terms are renewed over the duration that is set forth.
Racing is a universal language. Every racer understands the growl of an engine, the sensation of speed, and the thrill of victory.
This legal battle isn't just a headache for NASCAR, it's a fight for the sport's soul. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports had one goal after filing the lawsuit, to ensure they could race as chartered teams in 2025, despite not signing the agreement. It wasn't easy. NASCAR set a hard deadline, but a U.S. District Court granted a preliminary injunction allowing both teams to buy charters from Stewart-Haas Racing, which shut down after the 2024 season. They're racing for now, but the bigger issue looms. Johnson noted, the entire process is being delayed, hinting at a messy road ahead. What's at stake? Transparency and fairness. Teams want a seat at the table, not just a sliver of the pie. The 29.5% media rights share is a step up, but it's a far cry from the 50% other sports leagues offer. And with private equity flooding into NASCAR, Johnson's own legacy motor club partnered with Knighthood Capital Management, the pressure's on to modernize. Could this lawsuit force NASCAR to evolve into a true league like Formula One did under Liberty Media? Or will the France family dig in, risking more rebellion? So what's NASCAR really afraid of? Johnson's comments peel back layers of a sport teetering on the edge of change. The antitrust lawsuit isn't just about revenue, it's a challenge to NASCAR's antiquated governance. It feels like an antiquated structure for a new age of media, Johnson acknowledged indirectly. Teams are tired of being private contractors in a family empire. They want a real partnership, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Charters are now valued at $40 million, with Johnson predicting $60 million soon. But if NASCAR doesn't share more of media rights, track revenue, and new income streams like gambling, more teams might follow 2311 and Front Row's lead. The irony? NASCAR's never been more popular. Netflix's NASCAR. Full Speed has boosted its global appeal, and new fans are flocking to races. But behind the scenes, the sport's stuck in the past. Johnson sees a path forward. In another 7 years, the charter negotiations open again. We've weathered an 11-year system, and it's directionally going right. But will NASCAR listen before the tension explodes into something bigger, like a rival series on non-NASCAR tracks? The recent antitrust lawsuit involving NASCAR has ignited a fierce battle over money, power, and the future of the sport. Jimmie Johnson's comments have highlighted the growing tensions, particularly as teams like Michael Jordan's 2311 Racing fight for a more equitable distribution of wealth. The France family's long-standing control over NASCAR is facing unprecedented challenges as teams argue that the current system unfairly restricts competition and limits their financial sustainability. The lawsuit, which accuses NASCAR of monopolistic practices, has led to a preliminary injunction allowing 2311 and Front Row Motorsports to compete in the 2025 season without signing the new charter agreement. As NASCAR navigates this legal landscape, it must decide whether to evolve by sharing more revenue with teams or risk a full-blown revolt by clinging to its traditional model. The outcome could fundamentally reshape the sport, impacting both its competitiveness and fan engagement. rethinking its playbook might be necessary for NASCAR to ensure a sustainable future that keeps both teams and fans invested in the sport.